Good afternoon. I'm here today to discuss chapters 7 and 9 in Dirksen. A few of the insights I got there, and to address the question of My Future Classroom and how to effectively integrate technology within it to engage students. Um, I guess I'll start by saying that I don't know that technology is always the most effective way to reach students. It's new and hip and exciting, and that's great. But one thing I believe wholeheartedly in is the concept that an objective should come first prior to the integration of technology, because then that tech can take over. Um, Discussing practical skills as they do in Chapter 7 and talking about changing the environment to teach particular skills, they talk about introduction, practice, and feedback. And if there are real world skills, later they mention, just simply walking in the woods. I'm thinking they mention windsurfing in the chapter. So if I'm going to teach somebody to windsurf, first of all, I'd have to learn how to do it. But second of all, a laptop I don't think would be extremely effective at teaching that. It may be effective during the introduction phase. Show some videos of people doing it, show some tutorials of other people teaching the skill, since I don't know how to windsurf. But there's no substitute for practical experience, and so we need to bring in actual boards. And if we were super rich, maybe there's like a simulator or something technologically that could do some of that job, and so maybe we could use that. But as far as laptops and things of that nature, certainly more useful in the intro, or at the very least, beginning to teach those skills. But the practical needs to be practiced alongside the technological and the visual. If the skill itself is technological, I don't think I would break from current methods. I would demonstrate the skill, introduce the skill. Let's say it's a word processing thing. And then I would pace around the room. I'd watch student screens, and I would simply talk with them about how they're carrying it out. I'd give individual attention when needed. As simple as that. One thing I was very interested in is that teaching practical skills is not lecture. I guess that's something I may have implied into the chapter, but they talk about kind of keep climbing and keep getting more and more info for the students. They just continually are learning more, and then it becomes a sink or swim at the end. They either learn it all and they somehow magically know how to do this practical skill, or they don't. And so it's very, very sink or swim. They talk also about flow, and I think that's a little more effective. I think that's their argument, but I certainly see the value in it. If you allow for some of what I'm going to call intermediate mastery, meaning you master pieces of the skill or a version of any particular skill that's slightly less effective or less impressive than the final product, um, I do believe that's more effective, because that intermediate mastery in the midst of training means that skills will stack on top of each other to eventually become that final product, instead of it being that sink or swim thing at the end. It's also helpful because students have learned skills along the way, and so even if they don't nail the final product, um, they're still good as far as uh, learning some skills along the way, so they've still benefited from the course. Discussing chapter 9 very briefly, design for environment, they use the stovetop example, talking about how dials um, relate to the actual burners on the stove, and how they show the two pictures with the dials being here or the dials being here, corresponding to each burner. Talking about integrating knowledge into the environment so it doesn't need to be learned. I found that very interesting. And technologically, I think that applies too, especially with word processing programs today. Familiarity with one word processor really is familiarity with most or all to some degree. There may be different shortcuts around or different workarounds, but the majority of things, online, offline, even the infographic creator we used, edit text very, very similarly. Um, and knowing that knowing that familiarity can help people effectively engage technology, and I think that the true definition of intelligence is not necessarily just a mix between engaging technology and your own intellect. I don't know that you need to completely separate it, but I do believe that intelligence is knowing how to engage that material, getting a grasp of it, and growing in proficiency over time while still having access in order to complete the tasks before you. So you'll still complete tasks using technology early on, but you'll become better at those tasks as you go. And I believe that's really how the world works. You know, teachers are provided curriculums and such. So, uh, yeah, that's really about it. I think I've covered everything. Let me know if you need any additional insight. Thanks.